Hello! Welcome to another one of these little how-to video tips, tricks, things in Premiere with video editing video things that I do. That made no sense, did it? I usually don't. Anyway, I've been doing a few of these videos lately, and I've figured for this one, we'd focus on some transitions. I've collected a list of some of my favorite ones to use in videos, and ones that can be good with certain themes, and ones that are typically commonly used by a lot of people. So, let's dive right into it. First thing to keep in mind, this is limited in Premiere Pro because that's the software I use. Some of these can be recreated by hand, but it's just easier when you have a program that works, comes with these. Now, whatever program you use, odds are they come with their own transitions that you can use, and go experiment with those, play around with those. Trust me, you'll find something that's super fun, and probably some that are very similar to these. Or exactly the same as these. Some of these are pretty generic. Now, first things first is the age-old classic, the cross dissolve, or just pretty much any dissolve at all. It doesn't have to be a cross dissolve. I typically just use the cross dissolve because it's one of the first dissolves on the list. You've got cross dissolve, additive resolve, film dissolve. Morph cut can be fun. I've never really used non-additive dissolve. Morph cut is fun, but situational. Anyway, cross dissolve is pretty simple. One frame dissolves into another. If you want another, here, I'll delete this real quick. If you want a better glimpse of what it kind of looks like, you can go like this. It's basically that. The reason why I use it here is it's very commonly used in videos where, say, there's a long pause in between two sections, which you see in some of my videos I've done. Or say somebody was following a script and they messed up reading the script at one particular point and started again a few seconds later. They can use a cross dissolve to just kind of mesh the two together rather seamlessly. Since most of the surrounding video is the same, the only thing that really changes is the subject talking. So you just kind of get this effect where the only thing that really changes drastically is like my cursor moved and then my face moved, but beyond that, everything kind of stays the same. You can even shorten this down. Right now it's at a minute. It's at 1 second and 1.06 seconds, which is the norm. You can shorten it down. Let's say we'll shorten it to 0.15 seconds. It's a very quick, blink and you miss it kind of transition. You can even shorten it further, 0.07. 0.07 may be a little too fast, but you get the idea. It kind of works as a fun little, nice way to just kind of blend together. And this transition typically is used with the constant power, some sort of audio transition, to be able to get the audio to also seamlessly transition. This works especially well with music, and any background noise there is will kind of just blend together, so there's not this as jarring of a jump in audio, since audio tends to have the more jarring jump than the video does in these sorts of situations. So it's a good thing to keep in mind, and you'll definitely want to play around with that to make sure you get the right audio cues, start and stop, all that. The next one that I'm going to reapply is an iris. There's a few iris options. Iris round is typically the most commonly used. Pretty straightforward. It's just a circle. It opens up. Or other object. You could use the diamond. Whatever object it is, doesn't really matter. It does feel a little slow, right? You can speed it up by shortening the transition length to turn that to 0.16. Feels a lot smoother, a bit faster. Transitions, their default are 1 second, 1.06 seconds, but typically you end up shortening them because a full second for a transition tends to be a little too long. And you'll see, especially with one in particular that's coming up after these next two, which are connected. This is one of my personal favorites for certain video types, is the page turn. I love the page turn when it comes to storytelling type edits. Say it's a good example is if, say, somebody's doing a stream where they're reading a book. There are lots of public domain books out there. I was actually working on a video at one point. Wasn't able to finish it due to the lack of one VOD went missed a VOD, so I wasn't able to finish the series. But point is, they were reading Pride and Prejudice, and I was putting together like a kind of audiobook thing. And for the video portion, I actually used a lot of page turn things because it works really well with changing chapters. It gives that feel of reading a book. There are two ways to do this one. This is the normal page turn. It's got the plain background on the back of the page. But there's also another one that has the video you're actually peeling away from on the back. The reason why I show both is because sometimes this normal page turn doesn't always work too well. Keep in mind the difference. This one is page peel, right? Yep, this one is page peel. This one is page turn. Reason why it's important because sometimes, if you look in this example, the page turn doesn't really have the same effect here, does it? Because it's basically just the two clips are so similar, there's not really much of a substantial effect there, which is when you can use the page peel. Hold on. There we go. To get the actual effect to still look correct. So that's something to keep in mind, play around with. A lot of these are very much play around with, play it by ear, clip by clip basis, that sort of thing. The next one is also a very common one and tends to go with a certain sound effect, which I'm not including in this. I would have to make my own to include it in this video for the homework assignment. Anyway, it's the whip. Whoosh. It's very slow, right? Yeah, typically you see this one slowed down a lot. I'm going to slow this down to 0.10. See, it's a nice whip. I usually see that with a whoosh sound effect on there. See it in a lot of videos. A lot of YouTubers use this. It's a very effective, quick way to just snap from one frame, from one scene to another. Works really well. And it's super easy because it's just right there, just done. That's it. And also the whip works really well with clips that are similar, like this one. Grab the whip, put it in here. See, it works really well with clips that are similar. It just works well in general. It's a very nice one, good to use. And we've got cross zoom. Cross zoom can be very fun, though personally I prefer to use, if I'm going to use a zoom, I prefer to do like the 60s Batman thing where you have the object in the center that starts out small, zooms in towards the center of the screen, has some sort of spin or shake or whatever is going on with it, and then it zooms back down, then it kind of shrinks back down, and you have your normal background again. It's a different video clip. That's a lot more fun way to do it, but the cross zoom works too. You can actually, if you change this, you can actually change the center of the zoom, so it will zoom in on the particular subject matter. So you can actually, with some effort, you can actually make it so that you actually target a very particular point. So like, say, trying to do a transition that's like looking into someone's eye and see what they see and then go into the clip that's inside of their eye. This is great for that. So then you just kind of start again on this end, back inside of the eye, and you zoom out or something, So it works really well. It's definitely one that's fun to play with, work around. You can do a lot of things with the cross zoom. It's very useful. Next is the clock. It is called the clock wipe. It's a wipe transition. Clock wipe is typically usable when telling the passage of time. It's a good transition for that. Game show, story, whatever it is. put in a sound effect that's a clock ticking, and it works beautifully. It's a great thing for just telling the time has passed. Person was working, say somebody was working on this thing. Some time passed, they were working on their homework assignment for a good couple hours. And then time passes and poof, they're done. Stuff like that. Great transition for that. And we've also got paint splatter. I love paint splatter. It is a lot of fun. Paint splatter is great for like a messy clip. It works really well with, I haven't actually played the game, so hold on. Splatoons, I think is the name. The squid shooter game for Nintendo. Anyway, it works really well for that game because paint, the whole point of the game is shooting paint at each other. Or say somebody in a video got really dirty and you transition to the next scene where they kind of got cleaned up. They were like playing a game outside in the rain or something. Did a transition to when they had a chance to like get a shower, clean themselves up, and they're doing the next part of the video. Transition for that works really well. And then there are some transitions that are just there for fun. I mean, there probably are some good uses for these, but the VR ones I just think are really fun. They are kind of tricky to use because they do focus on, as the name suggests, VR. So not always fun, the most applicable, but this one's one of my favorites. It's just a fun little spin circles. It's so... I don't know why I find it so fun, but I do. I find it very entertaining. So, and you can, mess around with a lot of the settings in it, but I personally just find it to be a very fun effect. There are a couple caveats to keep in mind with using pretty much any transition. For example, right here, you see this little triangle diamond, the bookmark that's on this clip. That marks that it's the beginning of this whole thing. The problem with this is that it messes with transitions because this is the beginning of the next clip. There is nothing before this. So there is nothing for the transition to read, to work around, right? So if you try to take a transition, but we'll just go with the cross dissolve. See what it does there? It limits it to this clip because this is the only space that has extra video, because this extends beyond into here. So as you can see, this can extend. There's more video to this past the point where it cuts off. There is nothing past here. It can't go past this. So the transition will only focus on this video clip. Now, it can still work, but for some transitions, it does mess it up. And you'll just have to kind of play around with it. A lot of this will be by experience. As you learn, as you go, I gotta play around with things. It typically isn't a big deal, but when it is a big deal, it messes you up real bad. So it's always kind of a good rule of thumb to try to make sure you have enough time between the start of your video, or your recording or whatever, the footage, and where you want the transition to be. It's one of the reasons why, along with other reasons, you usually have the 5-second pause before you start actually like talking or doing whatever the action is in a recording. But yeah, that's more or less the basics of transitions. Nothing too complex, nothing too crazy. Just kind of going over some fun things, some things to keep in mind. And yeah, I hope this helps people with making their videos. Have some fun with it. By all means, experiment, play around. It's one of the reasons I don't go into extreme levels of detail and like this is exactly how you do this transition and do this and that and the other, because the best thing you could possibly do is play around, experiment, have fun with it, and make it your own. It feels so much better when the video you create has your own flair and is all your own, rather than just taking a bunch of ideas from other YouTube videos out there talking about like, make this transition, make this effect, do this, do that, because while those are fun and really useful, and I use a lot of those because they're fun and useful, there's a much more complete feeling, much more accomplished when your work is yours and you put in the time and the effort to make it the most it could be. So go all out. Just have fun. And yep, that's it. Bye.